Hello, I'm Paul.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Ben, and I'll make apologies now for the way Paul sounds.
I know, very sorry.
He's very snotty. His baby gave him the snots.
He did.
Please stop talking about the snots. This is not a fine way to start the podcast.
You started it!
Paul's very sick.
My nose is very runny. It's not COVID, I promise. It's just my little child passed it on to me, and I felt very bad 2 days ago. Now I'm coming out the other end of it, and I just sound funny. I'm sorry.
There is many miles between us, so it doesn't matter if he is, listeners. We'll still be here in the long run.
I'm very glad that you didn't have this silly voice when the Contrarians were with us last week.
They wouldn't have taken us seriously at all.
Maybe it would have suited the topic of the film. Who knows?
Maybe it'd been one of his characters. He's going to keep changing his voice throughout this now. He's going to have 13 changes and only 9 of them are characters. You've got to work out the real ones.
We're back to basics this episode. Back to just the three of us. It was 5. It was a chaos episode. It was a lovely episode.
Lovely.
But now this bring it back to basics. Quickly, before we carry on, let's just roll that theme tune.
Oh, he wants the theme tune out nice and early.
He gets really annoyed that we chat shit and he can't get his theme tune in, doesn't he?
Last week, he played the theme tune right at the very beginning.
Did he?
I know.
Oh,
And
that's because
then
there was no other
spoke.
place to put it because we were chatting shit probably.
I know. We got about half an hour into it before we realised the theme tune hadn't rolled.
It's a fine episode.
Today we are doing Adam's Choice. It is Burning, the South Korean film from 2019.
Is it 2000? I thought it was 2018.
2018.
The 2018 film, Burning.
So, hello, and thank you for subscribing. Or if you're not subscribing, do so now, because we're coming at you with content every fucking week during this lockdown. And we're just 3 friends that shoot the shit about film. We're not too pretentious, we're not too highbrow, we're not too crass, we're not too lowbrow, we're somewhere in the middle.
We do our own little territory. We do our own thing.
Some of us are more articulate than the others.
And we don't mind pulling up each other on their shit that we're talking.
Do you know what? Can I say? I was listening back to our episode from last week with Holy Motors, and this is the difference between us and the Contrarians. Is there is a point where Alex is speaking, and then Julio jumps in to say something, and when he finishes his point, he says, "Sorry, Alex, to interrupt you there. Carry on." When have we ever said that on this podcast? So well mannered, man. That's how it should be. You make a point. I hear your point. Here's my point. Oh, sorry, sir. Go after you, sir. We are terrible by comparison.
The day that happens is the day we stop the podcast.
We could all do with a few more manners.
Especially you.
Anyway, we don't do too much manners over here. So let's just move immediately to the quiz, shall we, boys?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's get on with this one.
So, listeners, we do this quiz every week where I ask the boys 2 questions. If they get it right, they get a point. If they get it wrong, I get the point. Currently, we stand at 19 points joint for me and Paul and 14 points for Adam. That was after last week's surrogate guests answering questions, Julio and Alex answering questions. This time it's back to the boys. And
Back to reality.
as part of the prep for Burning, one of the kind of rules that Adam laid out and then started backtracking on, but he said, when he said we were going to do Burning, he said, don't read anything about it because I want to just talk about it on the podcast. And true to his word, I did that. However, I did have to just look at some basic stuff, not trivia, to come up with these questions. And these are fine questions that don't involve any in-depth knowledge of the film.
Cool.
So let us see. And the first one very much relates to a comment you were just making about years and when things were released. So check this out. Are you ready, boys?
Mm-hmm.
Burning was the South Korean entry at the 2019 Academy Awards, but it didn't get shortlisted and nominated for Best Foreign Film. Which film won the Oscar for Best Foreign Film that year?
Roma.
Oh, he's got it!
Well
Yeah.
done. Well done.
We're not going to go into detail about that film because I think we know all how we feel about that one.
Yes. Everyone will be very angry with us for our takes on that film.
We all hate Roma. That
We do.
I still don't get that film.
Paul is sick, and so he was very slow off the mark there. But
I was.
Adam gained Paul's loss is Adam's gain. Shall we go right into the next question?
Let's do it.
Before appearing in The Walking Dead, Steven Yeun appeared in which US sitcom in 2010?
I have no idea. So The Office.
No.
Ooh, I don't. I'm trying to think back to 2010 now, because like I'm trying to think what was around at that time.
How old would you have been? 15,
As you know,
16?
I don't like sitcoms, so I wouldn't have watched it.
It's a trivia. It's a little trivia question.
It's very good trivia.
I really don't know, to be honest. I'm going to go like Big Bang Theory.
Oh,
I don't
he's
think...
double whammied it.
Is
It's
it?
Big
Shit.
Bang Theory.
I was
That
going to
is
say
definitely
Big Bang
nothing I'd
Theory,
watch. I hate that show.
but I don't think he would have been in it. I don't think Big Bang Theory was around in 2010, but it was.
It was around a couple of years before that, I think. I think it
Was
started
it?
2008 or 2009.
Fucking hell.
Look at that.
Adam.
I don't know why. It just
Very
felt right.
fitting. The guy who didn't want us to do any research gets the 2 points. Very good.
I know, yeah, it was only for the quiz purposes.
I bet you Paul's little ears, they perked up when you started mentioning Steven Yeun, because Walking Dead, and then you just killed him off and moved past
You know
to
what?
Walking Dead.
As I was coming to this episode, I was like, I'm just going to let Adam have all these points. I don't really care.
Yeah,
He's so
yeah.
far behind.
Would you? How quickly were you close to saying Roma, by the way?
I was thinking of what even happened in that year. So
Yeah,
I wasn't even close
at
to
the
it.
beginning, I was like, when he started saying foreign film, I was like, I'm not getting this. And I was like, fucking hell, it was obviously Roma, wasn't it? Because that load of shit came out.
I was thinking it may have tripped you up because, as you said, it was a 2018 release, so you might have said the film that won the Oscar in 2018. Does anyone know what that was?
What, best foreign picture?
Yes.
2018.
No idea.
So the year before Roma.
Yeah. I'm having to Google it because I don't know. Well,
I can't tell.
I've never heard of it.
Oh, well, I won't get it then. What is it?
I know, I've never heard of it. A Fantastic Woman. Do you want to know what's interesting about Steven Yeun's appearance in The Big Bang Theory? He's only in it for like 15 seconds, but it's in an episode where it flashes back to when Leonard first moved in with Sheldon. And before
Does he play Sheldon's roommate?
Yeah, he comes out of the lift, and the funny thing is, he says to Leonard, "Run away, dudes, run fast, run far." And you could say that was like a little foreshadowing of how things were going to be for him in The Walking Dead.
Is he still alive? Oh no, he died in The Walking Dead, didn't he?
Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched Walking Dead.
If you haven't, don't bother starting it.
Before we move away from the quiz, a reminder, we didn't actually do this with the Contrarians last week, but we're going to do it this week. I'm bringing back that little feature. So
Oh yes, I was thinking about this.
There is a words that if either of these boys say it in the duration of the podcast, they get a point deducted.
Oh,
Okay.
shit.
What happened? What did we say would happen if you boys didn't say the word?
Then you lose a
You
point.
lose a point.
Right, okay.
Okay, anyway, should we go on with this?
Let's roll that theme tune.
The main event. Here is our featured topic, plus Adam might do a rubbish plot summary.
Are you fucking serious?
Paul's a little trooper, isn't he? You could tell that he's sick, but he's carrying on through the
I'm
pain.
fine. I'm actually very relaxed right now in a really nice chair.
You sound drugged up, mate, is what you sound. You're talking so slowly, is what it seems like to me. It's taking you a long time to get your words out.
Let me introduce this film, okay?
All right.
So, today we are doing Adam's request, which is Burning, the 2018 South Korean film. This is a spoiler episode. We'll be going straight into spoilers, no hanging around. But first of all, Adam has to do a very beautiful plot summary.
Thank you. So this film is about two friends that meet up after a long time of not seeing each other, and they become quite close together. And then she disappears to Africa, and she comes back with a new man, and then certain things start to change in their lives, and the dynamic is broken, and there's weirdness around them, and yeah.
I'm sorry, but if you're saying I speak really slowly, I think Adam's speaking really slowly as well.
Adam was speaking very slowly then, yeah.
I was
but that
trying to
makes a
think
nice
of what I was going to
change.
say next. I was trying to bide the time to think of the next sentence. But yeah, yeah, and then there's some mystery and some burning.
Mystery and some intrigue.
There's some mystery and some fire.
Well, very, very beautiful little description you did
If
there.
that doesn't sell it, then I don't know what else would.
Probably someone saying a better plot summary.
And that's a South Korean film, is it?
It's from South Korea, yes.
Go on, it's your choice, so you get to choose who you want to go first. I would like you to go first, to be honest, Adam, but
I'm going to pick you, Paul, because it's been on your watch list. And so I think like you've had a little prior interest into this film, so I want to know what you think.
Okay, I'll go first.
Because I think I left my letterbox score up, so I think you kind of both got a rough idea.
Yeah, I
didn't know that you left your letterbox. I saw that you had rewatched it recently, and it came up, but there was no stars on there. And then when Paul said, "Oh, he gives it thing," I was like, "How do you know that?"
Yes, I thought we all had prior knowledge that was the score. Anyway, this is what I think of the film. So, there's always something very exciting and exhilarating jumping into a film completely blind, just like our little film Bacurau, which I made you both jump into blind. We had a very lovely time talking about it, and now we have the phrase Bacurau blind.
Yeah, it's a good phrase.
Is that a phrase, or just like
it's a phrase?
It's a phrase. We've been using this phrase for a while.
Yes,
we went Bacurau blind into this and into Holy Motors.
We did.
I didn't notice you said that. I zoned
you're
out.
not even listening, mate. Shit. Not even listening. Watching a plot unfold in front of you naturally with no sense of like a direction or even like a genre. Genre
Paul Gaultier.
Genre.
You've turned French again.
Even a genre.
He's done
Holy
2 French
Motors.
podcasts in Broad and now he can't stop.
Of a genre adds
Yes.
like so much like to any reveal or plot twist that like happens in the film. But evidently not with this though, because I found it incredibly dull. And like my eagerness to understand this film's direction soon turns like slight impatience. I think the characters were dull, especially the lead. Regardless of whether that was the point of his character, I couldn't feel any manner of like emotion for him or anyone else really. And the common South Korean trait of sexualizing situations was not necessary either, and I don't think they added anything to the plot other than the lead was a serial masturbator. That's the only thing it added really. But regardless of all this, it held my interest enough to get me through that hefty 2.5 hours, as well as having some very beautiful shots, which I appreciated. And although I don't think there's any kind of revelation that will make me view this film in any other light, I'm looking forward to Adam shedding some light on this film, as he told us he would. Because I know you've done your research, Adam.
You two have very bigged up what I've said about this film.
But for me, it's a 6
You
out
two
of 10.
got a lot riding on this.
What's the score?
It's a 6 out of 10.
6.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, that's a fair score given what you said.
Well, who's next?
Okay. You can go next, Ben.
So, likewise, going in blind was a kind of joy. The only thing I knew was there was a cat in it that may or may not have been alive by the end.
We can discuss that afterwards.
We can discuss that afterwards, yeah. It was a very slow film. Very, very slow. And the 2.5 hours felt like 2.5 hours. The characters largely irritated me. Particularly the main guy who's called Juong, I think. Jong-soo, sorry.
Lee Jong-soo.
Lee Jong-soo was not a lead character that I could feel very attached to or identify with or support or empathize with, because lots of things he was doing, I was thinking, why are you being so passive, and why are you just a passenger, a bystander in your own life? And also, why are you masturbating over propaganda masts? I don't know. And the film only really got interesting for me whenever, I can't believe I'm going to say this, Steven Yeun was on screen, who I just couldn't stand in The Walking Dead because he was so 2D and cartoon-like, that in this he was actually a breath of fresh air. And that was because I was really interested in whether he was this psychopath that he was being portrayed to be, or whether things were actually more on Jong-soo's head. And for me, it took 2.5 hours to get to a moment of realization where the film wasn't actually really going to tell you definitively if he was or not. And that annoyed me when the film ended. But then a day later, I got a chance to think on it a bit more, and I thought maybe there is a little more to it than meets the eye. But that doesn't forgive it for taking so long to try and get his points out. Maybe it was beautiful, but scenes went on for far too long. Like, sometimes there were 10 or 15 minute long scenes of people just driving around, which is just too much. And for that reason, and with regret, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10 also.
Ooh, well.
Okay.
I was close to bringing it up to a 7 when I was thinking on it today. But let's see what happens with our conversation afterwards.
Okay. All right. I watched this film first time probably about a month ago now. And I remember watching it and I'm thinking, it is a slow burner, like you both said, but it always kept my interest. And again, I kind of agree with your points that the characters aren't the most interesting, but it's the situation that they found themselves in that was interesting to me. Like the whole mystery behind everything, how you didn't really know what was going on and you were never really led to see the full picture. You were kind of always kept out of things. That always kept you enticing to see a little bit more and a little bit more. And when it ended, immediately I wanted to find out more about this film. And that's what I want to talk to you guys a bit about in this. So I did a little research. And there's certain things of depth in that people have noticed. And there's other elements to this film that I was thinking, oh yeah, like, okay, when you see it in this light, and there's a lot trying to go on in this film. It's just not what it seems on the surface. So I suggested the film to you guys, and then I've rewatched it again since at the beginning of this week, knowing what I knew before. First of all, I gave it 8 the first time round, if that helps. So yeah, I carried on, watched it, and it did grow, but it didn't grow enough for me to move my score up from an 8. And so it's an 8 out of 10 for me. But it's a great discussion. I thought I'd bring it over here because I feel like there's a lot to talk about in this film, whether you disliked it or you liked it. There's a lot of elements in here. I feel like, yeah.
I agree.
Very good. I'm interested for you to tell us, because I'm interested that you actually were interested enough to watch it again that second time. It must have had some intrigue that you needed to go back to it.
Yeah, because it leaves you so. The ending is kind of, we're going to go straight to spoilers here, but the ending is where it's so open, and it's kind of, obviously the question is, did you think the guy from Stephen Yang's character was a serial killer? I think his name's Ben, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is he this person? Did he kill her? Did he take her away? Did he kill her, or did he send her away for sex trafficking, or what actually happened in this situation? Like, what happened? And then this is where it became interesting for me, because
I didn't even consider that he sent her away for sex trafficking.
Yeah.
See, this is the thing. He's always travelling, and he said at the beginning, like, import and export stuff.
Interesting.
You wouldn't understand, is what he said to him, didn't he?
So, before you go on, like I said, when the film ended, I was a bit annoyed because I thought, well, that was just a really straightforward story, and now it's taken 2 hours to get there, and that's just pissed me off. But as time's gone on, there's been a few things that make me think, well, maybe not. So essentially, like, that make me think maybe he didn't kill her. Maybe something else is going on.
Because when I've watched it the first time round, I was like almost convinced that he did it, and on the second time round, I really wasn't too sure. And there's obviously a key thing that I noticed when she's dancing with her top off.
Of course, you noticed that, you dirty.
That's
old
what I
bird.
noticed second time. That was it.
She walks back past him, and he calls her a whore.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Which I don't know if that's the bit. Then I was thinking, if she'd been pissed off again now, and she's just left him and doesn't want to talk to him anymore, and that's what it is, and she just moved on with her life.
All right, so wait, cards on the table then. Where do we all stand on it at the moment in terms of whether he killed her or not? What do we think happened?
So in my books, this girl was like really fond of him. She like laid all her cards on the table, saying how she fancied him. She'd always been looking at him for her whole life. He'd always treated her mean. He treated her mean again. She was like, fuck this guy, and went off. And then he just, into his head, he thought, oh, there must be something more going on, and thought he killed her, but she just was left.
Okay.
I think that this guy is up to something. It's the dodginess within him. It's the bits afterwards. So you find the makeup box, and then you see him putting makeup on his new girlfriend, and it's the cat as well. The cat was the weird one.
The cat thing is very interesting. The cat thing
because that cat thing throughout the whole film is an interesting storyline. Because you never see the cat, and you don't know if the cat's real, but the food's getting eaten, the litter tray is full, but you never find this cat in this tiny apartment.
I was so anxious about the whole cat thing because...
Did you watch it with Jenny?
Because no, I didn't. But it wasn't about whether the cat was going to live or die, because, like, as I find out, you don't even see the cat till the end of the movie. But because you didn't see the cat, and then you saw the poo in the litter tray, that got me really on edge, because I started thinking, oh, what if there isn't a cat? What's doing that?
Yeah,
my mind started going that way.
Yeah, and then obviously you see the cat at the end of the film, and he's just randomly picked up a cat, and obviously in his head that's a tick, and in kind of my head that was a tick, that he is this.
Well, that's the thing. Like, when it ended, I did think, okay. Immediately, my reaction was, yeah, okay, Ben is a killer. He has killed her. There was ambiguity all the way through, but at the end, I was like, no, he's killed her, and that's it, because there was no further revelation beyond anything. But then, like, as I just go over it in my mind a little bit, I'm starting to think, or maybe he didn't, and maybe it's coincidence that he got a cat, because when Jong-soo said Boyle to the cat, and it made the cat leap into his arm, which, let me tell you, there is no cat that you've never met before that you say their name, they jump into your arm. It made me just think, well, the cat was just responding to him speaking. That wasn't the cat saying, oh yeah, that's definitely my name, and I'm that cat. It could have been any cat.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I thought. It's like, just because it was just another point that made him think the guy's a killer, just because of the coincidence that this cat responded to the name, doesn't mean that it was the cat.
I think it's probably more consistent with the whole film if Ben isn't a killer, because I think they're trying to say a lot about Jong-soo being this kind of like pathetic. Like, he annoyed me throughout, man. He had his mouth open for like 80% of the film, breathing through his mouth,
like a
and I'm
slob.
like, yeah, just do something, man. Just
okay.
Do
so here's
something.
the point. I thought of that at the beginning, and then this is what I read up afterwards about the film, and then it kind of changed my mind slightly.
Come on.
The writer and the guy who directed this film, he writes a lot of stories, and they're all kind of this whole same thing, rich and poor, kind of the divide of Korea. And apparently, when people wrote reviews of this film, they said his character is almost becomes emasculated because of the rich guy. This film is a symbolism for emasculation of the poor. They feel worthless in the presence of the rich man. Because obviously, you go back to when he's on the bed and he's having that dream that he's getting tossed off. He doesn't come, does he? He's just sitting there looking really depressed and like curled up. And you could say, again, he's demasculated. All of his mannerisms, he's kind of a very timid person after this. As soon as Ben comes around. And it's all of this thing, like the whole burning thing, coming to burning greenhouses and stuff like that, is a symbol of like careers, like farmers. There's a lot of farm work. So this rich guy going around burning down people's greenhouses, whether you think that it was him saying I'm gonna, like, him murdering people is like metaphor for it. But even if he isn't, it's just they're burning off. He's burning off. He thinks they're worthless. He thinks they're empty. But to a farmer, to a poor person, that's their livelihood. They can grow crops in it. They can sell stuff, and he's just going around burning them for fun.
Well, I like that symbolism for a rich guy going around burning
there's
down.
quite a lot of symbolism throughout this film that I read afterwards that he said. For example, they've also got the bit where he says to again, the police don't pay attention to that stuff, do they? They're never going to catch me because they don't care. Which is another symbolism saying that the government doesn't care about you guys. I could do what I want to you, and if you report the crime, they aren't going to look into it because they actually don't care. And apparently, this is what the director was doing with this film. He says there's a lot of Korean films or Asian films that they all show like people being rich, like Crazy Rich Asians, for example. It's only Parasite again recently that have come out to be a bit of the difference that shows the big class divide that there is in Korea and all of these type of countries, because obviously they've had a boom from this technology boom, like the big cities are bustling and hustling because they're earning different in the money way that they're competing with. But you also have these people who are still farmers and they're still living in the shadow of North Korea like he was. You could hear the propaganda coming across the tannoids into his area. You've still got these people, they're farmers, and they've got to do, they do like a military service and all of this type of stuff that the rich don't have to do.
So are you saying, I appreciate you explaining it out like that, because that sort of thing hadn't occurred to me, and now, okay, I can get that from the film a bit. But are you saying to me then that it's intentional that Jong-soo is so like useless and impotent and pathetic in any situation, because it's meant to be symbolic of like the poorer Korea who are unable to stand up to the rich?
It's him
Korea?
getting crushed. Yeah, it's him getting crushed. It's like everything around you is getting taken away, and you just kind of stand there and take it. There's nothing you can really do to fight back.
So how does that go hand in hand with the logic that Ben or rich Korea didn't really kill the girl, and that the poor version of Korea has made out the rich Korea to be the villain? Because that's what we're saying. If we're saying Ben didn't kill anyone, we're saying the film is saying that poor Korea has made rich Korea up to be a monster in their heads.
Okay, but that's another way to point it. I personally think he did something with her, because the way he says the import.
Oh, you think he killed her? Yeah. Okay.
And he just set her up, and then he kind of got his new girlfriend, and then he was doing the same with her. He said, like, every 2 months I've burned a barn, and like that's a metaphor for, again, for getting rid of him or killing him or whatever he's doing. Because there's another part of it again. So there's a part where Ben's out there, he's speeding along in his Porsche, and he's smoking weed, which apparently weed is like a big no-no in Korea. Like, they don't accept drugs of any kind. But he gets away with it and whatever. And then you've got Jong-soo just sitting there in his truck, and those policemen come down and give him a dirty look. It's all like that thing that the system is built up against you.
I think there's definitely something subtle, like flowing throughout with Ben, because there's little moments that are like highlighted but never like paid off on, that obviously mean something. So like the fact that his mate comes when we first meet Ben, and he says, "Oh yeah, I was following you the whole way, but I didn't overtake you." Like, so he was driving behind Lee Jong-soo the whole time. He could have picked Ben up, this guy, but he didn't want to. He just basically was driving behind him the whole time and not overtaking. True. And then there's also the whole, when the party scenes where he's yawning, where it obviously means that he's set these parties up. He doesn't really want to have the party, but he's just doing them anyway for some reason. That's what I can take from that situation, for him yawning.
Just on that party thing with him yawning, in a weird way, what it reminded me of was Always Sunny in Philadelphia, when Dee and Charlie become friends with the rich guys. You know,
they get them to entertain them.
And then they just like bring them around their high society friends to basically say, look how fucking low ranking they are.
Yeah.
And I know that was based on a film as well. I don't know what film it was, maybe Dangerous Liaisons or something, I don't know. But I just got the impression that when he said early on in the film, I like to play, that was his like version of playing. It was like, I just pick up needy, pathetic people, I bring them into my group of friends, and we just laugh about them, we trash them. I'm totally disinterested in them. I just like making a fool out of them. And then perhaps go on to kill them, perhaps. But I think it was more like, at that point, it was just like, that's how our friends entertain ourselves. We pick a victim, and then they all come around and watch them humiliate themselves with their stupid stories. Because let's face it, Jaime I found to be highly annoying also.
I didn't like any people in this, really. I know what you mean about Ben. He had some kind of intrigue.
The story isn't relying
really
on that. Maybe it's your overall rating, it kind of matters, but I still feel like there's other levels to this story without enjoying the characters from it.
Yeah, you don't have to like every character, but I kind of have to feel like I get someone's motivation. Like Jong-soo was frustrating from beginning to end, and maybe because the way you've explained it, maybe that does explain why he is that way. But then Ben, he isn't annoying. He is who he is. Like from the minute that he comes out of that airplane terminal behind her, I was like, uh-oh, here comes fucking trouble. And then he was, for 2 hours, he was fucking trouble.
I think
you knew exactly
really
what you got with him.
Really, you just have the intrigue because you know he's mysterious, and you kind of want something to come from him, because he's basically the crux of the story, the mystery of the story.
Yeah,
and you want him to pay off on it. And does he pay off on it? I don't really think so.
But also, do you think he's a bad person in some ways as well? He bullied her in school. He called her ugly in school.
So let me pick you up on that.
He's
point.
not a nice person as well.
Let me pick you up on that point, though. There's a couple of things there, right? She said, remember you used to bully me in school. He don't even remember that. Mm-hmm. She said, I fell down a well and you came and were the only one who helped me. He doesn't even remember that. When he tells other people about the well, they're like, she never fell down no well. The only person who says, oh yeah, maybe there was a well, was his mother, who comes back into his life because she wants some money. Mm-hmm. So she's not a reliable person to tell. So that made me think, and I don't have the answer for it, but that made me think there's some fucking game being played on Jong-soo here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By this Jaime, because the thing is, she just happened to encounter him at that weird raffle.
And then to look after a cat that doesn't exist.
Yeah, look after a cat that doesn't seem to exist.
And then the watch ends up in Ben's drawer. A watch that she finds tacky anyway, that she basically gave to him so he could give it back to her.
Yeah.
It's all very, very playing games on each other, really.
Here's another thing that I've read again. There's a line that is said in the film that her co-worker says, and it goes, "This is no country for women."
Yeah.
And again, it's another, people were saying it's another way of him, like I just said with the poor, him saying how women are treated within Korea as well. Because
I could get that totally. Like, it felt to me like it was saying this could be a serial killer's pickings, because all of these women, even when they're flamboyant and in your face, all in bright colours, holding up signs and stuff as they were outside of shops, even though they're right there in front of you, if one of them went missing tomorrow, you wouldn't even notice.
Exactly, they don't care. Like when his mum leaves, he's made to destroy her things, and it's like saying she served her purpose. Move on from her now. Don't remember her. Get rid of her memory. Move on.
Yeah.
And the second that this Hemi tries to express herself with that dance when she's high, she's doing like the bird sign. Like you could say that as a sign for freedom, maybe.
Highly annoying, that dance scene. I had no patience for that shit.
It was nicely shot.
It was nicely shot because I remember thinking they got this sunset here, so they timed it nicely. But it's like they're maxing it out too much. I don't care to keep seeing her. Why do we need to see that dance, please?
And why'd you got to take your top off?
See, people were saying it's a dance of freedom, it's a dance of expression, it's a dance of controlling your sexuality. And the second that she does this, the men look down on her and call her a whore. She hasn't done anything. She's just dancing, and she's like dancing for freedom. But the thing is, okay, so
Jong-soo says she's a whore, but he also, before he says that, he says, "Why do you always feel the need to get undressed in front of men?" And I agreed with that. Because she fucks Jong-soo almost immediately after meeting him.
It's a very awkward scene where they fumbling over each other. Even the kissing's horrible. He's like dribbling all over and like trying to put his whole mouth over her chin.
That droopy mouth, man.
Yeah. But yeah, as you say, it's like the sexualization of her. It's like she should be able to do what she wants for her body, but she does sleep with him straight away. She does take her top off as soon as she smokes a bit of weed. It's like, that's not just being free with your body. That's just like, it's not like it's a freedom of expression. It's more like you're just taking your top off.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
There's different ways of looking at this, because some people would say her doing that is an expression of her womanhood, and she should be able to do that. And the fact that men say you're a whore because of it is just men being oppressive. In the same way that some people would say, strippers and sex workers and whatnot are all expressing themselves in one way or another, and they're not actually being exploited. They're doing it because it's their choice. But I think when you strip everything right back, this film was directed by a man. It wasn't directed by a woman. And you don't see any dick, but you see tits twice.
You see his bum.
And a man wanking over stuff, like, randomly.
So while we're on this topic of sexuality then, can someone explain to me why he's masturbating over those antennae?
He's just a slob who decides to do it.
Yeah, he just wants to. He's living in her memory, isn't he? He's just being a pervert.
It's not even that time. Yeah, he's living in her memory then when she's in Africa. But he just does it because he's a low life slob who has nothing better to do.
She was his life, like he cared deeply for her.
But why the antennas? He's not just masturbating in her room.
Apparently, it's a famous building in Seoul. Like where she stays is in Seoul. It's not the propaganda ones from North Korea. That's what I thought it was at
But
first.
why
it's
is he
not.
looking at them and
He's
masturbating?
just looking
There
out
has
the
to be
window,
an
isn't he?
answer.
Because she was talking about, at the beginning when she got to the apartment, she was talking about how the sun reflects off it and how she liked it and all of this type of stuff. So
Is it a statement about like him finding like looking at all these amazing buildings, like the fantasy of it all being this like kind of rich in this rich
maybe what
society?
it doesn't have.
But they were just like radio masts, weren't they?
I know,
Isn't
I know.
that what it was?
I didn't like the scene, so.
No, I didn't like the scene.
I don't think you're meant to like the scene.
Do you know when you said he's having a dream of this girl tossing him off?
I don't remember
Because
that.
I thought that was just some random girl. I don't think that was.
It was her, wasn't it? It was in their bed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was Jaime.
It was in a
his
bed, and
Was
then
it?
he
I don't think it looked like
does
her.
it, and then like the shot basically cuts, and he's just lying in his bed alone, like crying.
Okay.
I think
thought
he's
she
like
just
in
left.
exactly the same position with his pants down.
Yeah, I remember that. But I thought she was like a prostitute or something because I don't think it looked like her.
No.
I don't know. I don't think he even would have the confidence to go and get any other
Yeah,
girl.
true.
So it
Very
probably
true.
is her in a dream.
Very true.
As much as he annoyed me, I understand more now why he is the way he is, based on you saying he's like a representative of the poorer working class Korea as opposed to the rich affluent Korea. I thought maybe they were getting at Steven Yeun being like the fact that they cast him as Ben was a comment on like Americanized Korea and how they're seen as more successful and wealthy and untouchable as opposed to the actual people who live and continue to live in Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one moment that felt he felt very Korean, but apart from one slight facial expression that felt very American, and that was when Jaime was telling all his friends about the dance, and then he's yawning and he looks over at Jong-soo and he pulls his face like I can't explain what kind of face it is. Like it's awkward. We're watching this story play out in front of us. It was that
Right.
kind of face, and it's such an Americanized expression, and a very like even a British expression as well. And you never see it. I never see it in foreign films.
Well, there you go.
There was also one other thing that he did. So when they very first meet, they shake hands, and Jong-soo's character bows, but Ben's character never bows. And apparently it's a very traditional thing when you meet somebody in Korea that you bow when you meet them as a sign of respect. But there's also these young people in Korea that have stopped doing it. And it's like he's still in touch with his old roots, and it's these new people coming through and they don't have time for that. They don't acknowledge that type of thing. And it's all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, that like the battle between the cultures almost as well, because he's still living on his farm. He's still doing it the traditional way. It's that another traditional element of the thing that he doesn't do.
But at the same time, who is this film for if you're making Jong-soo out to be like a slob, low society, doesn't want a job, just wants to lay around masturbating? But then it's also playing Ben off as someone who's arrogant and up himself and not respecting the old traditions. It's like, where's the message? What way are we going here? Who's
I
this
don't know
for?
where the message is, to be honest. Like, I don't know who it's for. I don't think he made it for anyone in particular. I think it's just he's trying to use it as a metaphor to a snapshot of Korean life. Like, he's saying all the Hollywood films at the moment within it that show the Asian culture like that always show the rich side of it.
I think that's kind of the thing, is that if you're saying these two characters represent two different sides of Korea, and in the straightforward story, the rich guy has killed this girl or has burnt the greenhouse, then the working class rise up and kill rich Korea by the end. But there's too many seeds of doubt planted throughout the film for it to be as straightforward
nothing's meant
as
to
that.
be, because nothing's meant to be straightforward, is it? It's like you're getting propaganda in your head. You don't know what. That's what is that all saying all the time. Like that his whole vision, the whole film is clouded. He doesn't know. He's never thinking straight. He's got his
That's
dad going to
interesting
jail.
because he's always hearing the North Korea propaganda.
You've got the North Korea, you've got the Trump on the television, you've got his dad going to jail for beating up a government official, you've got all of these extra elements going in his life that he doesn't know where to think. He's not actually thinking clearly the whole film.
That's interesting.
It's like watching Paddington and thinking that is a snapshot of London. In some ways, what he was saying, old Korean, like other Korean films are. They make it show glamorous and whatever, but that's not what it's really like, and he wants to show
It's
other films.
hyper-realised.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciated this not being a big spectacle of a film. I was actually surprised that you recommended this, Adam. This is nothing like anything else that you've recommended.
I just watched it and I just kept thinking about it since. That's why I thought it would make a good discussion.
It is a thinker. Here's something else that I think just occurs to me. He's a writer, this Jong-soo, who doesn't write anything, and then Ben says, why don't you write a story about me?
So this is another thing I was going to mention to you. So there was another thing quite interesting that I read about the ending of this film. And it makes you think maybe a bit differently if he actually killed him at all in the end. So you never see him write throughout the whole film. The only time you ever see him write is at the very end of the film. And the whole film is set through Jong-song's perspective. So like you're looking over his shoulder when he's in the restaurant talking to the mum from the courtroom and all that kind of stuff. The only time it ever isn't is at the very end of the film. And it's shot from Ben's perspective. So when he starts writing on his keyboard, the rest of that film is then shot from Ben's perspective. So you see him.
And what happens after that scene?
That's when he's killed. So that's when they meet up.
Just that ending.
It's just that whole ending bit. So there was a person saying this could be him now writing, because he never writes before because he doesn't know what to write about. He never feels like he's lived life. Now his dad's gone to jail. His mum's gone away. He's now sold the last car from the farm. So the farm's now gone. His love's now gone. He's now moved on with his life. It's like a new start to his life. So that's when he starts writing. He feels like he's gone through enough where he could start writing his story, and that the actual ending of the film could be him writing his story, like what he would do in that situation. He's written about the story, what he now thinks, like, this guy came in and did this, and at the end of it, the guy killed himself. He didn't actually kill him in the film we watched, but in the book he then writes is when he kills him.
So he's made up this fantasy there where he did actually kill her when it's not actually true.
He didn't actually. It's a fantasy in his mind. Yeah, he wants to kill him, but he can't do it because it is the truth. It's the only time you see him right in the whole film.
Do you know? At the end, I really thought something was going to happen. Like, do you know he has the makeup box in his cupboard? I really thought
Ben?
Ben. I really thought that he was going to start putting makeup on, and then suddenly he was going to look like Jaime.
Oh my god!
I was like so sure it was going to happen. It was some kind of split personality, and he was like envisioning both of them at the same time. I was like, I had no idea. But what do you think of this makeup box? Why is it there?
Because I think it's because he was doing the makeup on that other girl that he picked up.
Yeah, and apparently
And
another thing in Korean culture is you put makeup on people when they're going to die. It's like they die looking good. When you going into your like afterlife with, especially if they put makeup on them. A bit like we do it when you get that, like in 6 Feet Under. What's his name? Rico does it all the time, doesn't he? He like makes him look good, but apparently it's done before. So that's why he's got a makeup box. It could be another thing of him killing people when he puts their makeup on before. That's why he did it to the second girlfriend, like getting her ready for death, because he knows what he's going to do.
It struck me as a control thing. Either death or whatever it was a sinister thing, like doing makeup on a very placid, static girl who's sitting there showing no emotion. It's like, I'm in control here. I'll decide how you look. It was a negative thing for sure. And actually, that's one of the only times in the entire film that we see Ben, like, not through Jong-soo's eyes.
Yeah, it's him on
We
his
only
own.
ever see Ben when we're Jong-soo, so that's kind of revealing. If it's either saying this is really what's happening, then it is revealing, or if that's meant to be Jong-soo writing, then
yeah, that's why that's the only part of the film that's not, because you see him in the mirror doing his own stuff. And he's like in his own house doing his own thing.
Yeah, he puts contact lenses in. Like that is the way they did that was very like he's putting contact lenses in right now. This means something.
What, Ben put contact lenses in himself?
Yeah, they feel like, why did they focus on that?
I just thought it was him getting ready in his normal life, something that Jong-soo would never see. Like he's just doing his own thing. If that was Jong-soo doing that, you wouldn't expect it. But now you're not seeing it through his eyes. That's what I'm saying. It's now him writing the book, or potentially that's what this guy was saying. Potentially him writing the book to then.
So are we saying then? What are we saying happened?
I don't know. I think there's many hidden messages within this film, and you could try and pick it apart for days and read up about it and see what different people think. Ultimately, I do think he killed him.
There's something to say about him having all like the tokens in his drawer from different women, like different.
It's all of those serial killer bits.
Yeah, that's the only.
That's serial killer behaviour.
Yeah, keeping an item. But then I feel like that is the only thing that's very suspect, aside from the cat, which is a bit wishy-washy because we never saw the cat anyway, so it could be any cat.
So what do we think about him saying that he burnt a greenhouse when Jong-soo went around all the ones near him and there's no evidence that any was burnt?
Again, I think it's a metaphor for him getting rid of, killed another lady or...
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Whatever.
If Paul is saying that he didn't kill her, then what are we to make of him saying that he did burn a greenhouse, but there's no evidence of one being burnt?
Unless he was again playing with more poor people to see how crazy he could push them.
So that's very interesting, Adam, that you say burning a greenhouse means actually taking a girl. Because as you say, we never see... The only time we ever see a greenhouse burning is we get a shot of a little boy looking at a burning greenhouse.
Burning his mum's stuff. It was him burning his mum's
No, it's
clothes.
him. It was a shot of a burning greenhouse and a little boy watching it. But it's true. There's something to say about him saying, I burnt a greenhouse near where you live.
And then he said, when did you do it? He said, every 2 months. And he goes, when you're doing your next
4
one?
months, I think he said.
It will be
4
very
months.
soon.
And there was no burnt greenhouse near his house. I did actually think that he was just going to go back to his own house and his greenhouse would be burnt down.
Yeah. While you were away. This is how stupid I am. Even at that moment when he said... when he was talking to him when they were stoned about burning greenhouses, I thought, okay, I like this conversation because it's obviously not about greenhouses. And I thought he was suggesting that he was just going to ruin Jong-soo. I thought that's what the play was. I thought it was like, I'm just going to drive you mad. I'm going to ruin your life. It never occurred to me when he said one very, very near, I thought he was talking about Jong-soo. I didn't think he was talking about Jaime. So then when the narrative kind of shifted and she disappeared, I was like, oh, right, okay, we're this kind of film. Okay.
Also, if you read the short story that I sent you yesterday, I feel like it's more implied within that story that he did get rid of her. But in that story as well, it never mentions the end part of him killing Ben. That's all in the film. He said, I never heard from her again. And that's kind of how it ends.
And see, when Ben turns up at the end to Jong-soo, he's like, where's Jaime? And he seems to be speaking legitimately. And why, if he knows he's killed her, why would he even turn up? Why would he even turn up?
I mean, you could obviously play a bit dumb, but that sounded like a very legitimate way of shooting.
And he was not like, if someone says, I'm coming with Jaime, and you know Jaime's dead, then you're like, okay, this guy fucking knows that I've killed her.
Yeah.
And at the same time as well, if you look through the film, he was actually quite nice to him the whole time. He invited him to his parties. Like, there was no malicious stuff that Ben did to Jong-soo.
Is that true? I'm trying to think. Maybe that is
true. I feel
true.
like he was nice, but he was being nice
Smug.
in a weird way.
He was very smug.
He didn't need to invite him to a party. He was like, he came around his house and he was like, do you want to come to the party? It's like, why would you, if you didn't like the person...
But he invited
don't
him to the
invite
party
them.
at the end because he was sitting outside of his house.
Was that the same moment?
Yeah, it's when he's sitting outside of his
Yeah, it
house
was,
and then he
yeah.
gets the call
Oh, yeah.
and he says, where are you? And he goes, I'm in the city. And then he goes,
This is
and then he
very
knocks on the window.
true. There is not a single thing that Ben does that is actually bad, proper bad to Jong-soo. It's only the way it's framed in the film.
Yeah.
Like, you're conditioned as you're watching it to think Ben is a bad guy, but really, Jong-soo was just this fucking loser.
He just made it all up in his head.
Do you know what really annoyed me? Really annoyed me was when he was going to give Jaime a lift back from the restaurant, and then Ben was like, "Oh, I'm going to go home too," and then he just like Jong-soo just takes her suitcase out the back of his truck and passes it to her so she can go with Ben. It's like, what's with you, mate?
It's
You
really,
don't deserve her then.
It's really thinking he's less of a man than Ben is, really, because he's thinking that he's like less of a person has put him in that situation where he thinks that Ben has an ulterior motive because he suddenly appeared in his life out of nowhere, and
That's right.
It's he's planted this seed in his head, and even when he's stalking Ben and he sees him in the restaurant, Ben's just like, oh yeah, sit down. Do you want anything to eat or anything?
Yeah.
He's like,
He never comes at him or tries to do anything to
No.
actually stop him. And at that point when Ben ends up being behind him when they're on that like dirt track or something, I thought, oh shit, well now he's cornered. Ben just like drives on.
yeah. That was an odd scene actually, because the focus on that shot for so long He's just looking at of a lake or something, isn't he? Is it a lake or a hill?
Again, that they were saying the rich and poor and all of this. It's Ben sitting there looking at a lake and enjoying the view, whereas Jong-soo is looking at Ben, focusing on him through his Porsche. Like, you're looking for him through his car. Jong-soo is not actually enjoying the view because he's too busy focusing on the rich person, and the rich person's out there enjoying it all when he's too busy focusing on trying to get there.
This is interesting. Yeah, this is interesting.
That is something to say then about wanting to be like in the higher class, because that kind of goes with him masturbating, looking at all the outside, all the.
There is so many things throughout this film. This is why it was interesting to watch it again, and kind of you see the film in a different light, and this is where the discussions have come from.
I just had a thought, which never paid off, which is when they first have sex and he's looking around the room and he sees that light in the cupboard.
Yeah, I thought that was weird. I was like, what are you looking at? You're just looking at the back of a cupboard for some
There's
reason.
almost like mystical element, because it's like a light flashing in the back of the cupboard and then it slowly disappeared.
I didn't understand what he was looking at. It didn't make no sense
I
to me.
completely forgot about that part. I think it just doesn't pay off. Well, there's no obvious payoff to it.
I think now that we've spoken about it, I think for definite Ben didn't kill her, and that it is saying. I think exactly what you're saying, Adam, is true. It's about that poor and rich divide, and I think probably because the rich are seen as villainous and bad a lot, in this we are seeing how we automatically, our default is to view those more sophisticated.
Well, even if he didn't kill her, then he
people.
definitely led Jung-soo down the line to make him go mad and plant the seeds about the burning. He obviously knew that he was going around looking at greenhouses, following him, and doing all of this. He was definitely playing him in one way or the other.
But Jong-soo let himself be played, man. He had no balls, this guy.
Yeah, of course he was.
He was such a frustrating character.
He always had he never relaxed around Ben, did he? He was never comfortable.
He never relaxed around Amy either.
He always had his guard up, but in a weird way, to cause tension between characters. The only thing that he says, that Ben always says, is like, oh, well, I'll be burning a greenhouse in a day or two. It's very close. What does he mean by that statement if he doesn't mean something?
But also
like
Ben
that?
is also, what's it called? He is also
he plays.
like he's a player of women is what he is. Regardless of killing them, he moves on from woman to woman. So maybe him collecting all their objects is more like Dennis, again in Always Sunny, like little trinkets and rewards and trophies from each of his conquests.
Yeah.
That's what it is, rather than all his
There's another
victims.
scene again. I'm gonna keep going. I just remembered it. I saw. Do you know when he's having? Do you know when he's following Ben, and Ben's having dinner with his family in like an art gallery.
Oh yeah.
Jung-soo stands and looks at a wall, and it's got loads of people burning. It's like loads of fire all over, hasn't it? It's loads of different pictures all on fire, and apparently that happened in a place near Seoul. I can't remember the exact name of it. And basically the Korean government were moving out loads of poor people so they could redevelop the area, and loads of people barricaded themselves on top of a block of flats and protesting against getting kicked out of their area. And then the building caught fire. It all got burnt down, and those pictures there were from the scene of that happening, like this tower back catching fire, loads of people on top of it, and all of this. And it's saying how he's looking at it in an interesting way, whereas to Ben, that's just a backdrop in an art gallery to have a dinner with his family. Like, he makes it looks pretty when it's actually, to him, more deeper meanings.
Interesting. Like, the truth is, maybe he did burn a greenhouse. Maybe he really did burn a greenhouse for fun. And just Jong-soo didn't see which one it was. Maybe he did that.
Yeah.
And that he is a cunt for being that way, but he's not a killer.
Yeah. The only two real suspect things are the fact that her apartment is completely empty and her suitcase
Very
is there
clean.
still.
Her suitcase still there, yeah.
But he also said she would never have her apartment clean like this, which is weird. And also,
But how does he know that? He's only been there a few times.
It's true. And also just the fact that the jewellery in the drawer. But at the same time, she didn't care much for that watch anyway, because she said it was tacky. So she could have just left it around his house.
Tacky, and I hate
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
I think it's supposed to make you question these things, isn't it? It's not supposed to be as straightforward.
Yeah. It's meant to, so you have discussions like this and you think about it down the line.
See, I stand by my 6, but I do enjoy the fact that there's levels here to discuss this stuff.
I agree too. I definitely knew that we were going to have a bit to discuss with this film, but I still don't think that if I watched this again, I'd get anything else out of it.
I think it would be interesting to watch it again and go, okay, now because the entire time I watched it the first time, like I said, as soon as he's turned up, I was like, right, he's going to be a bad guy. I'd like to watch it again and go, okay, let me imagine he's not.
That's what I did. I watched it and thought bad guy, and I thought, let's give it a second time round and think maybe he's not so bad.
But second time round, you still thought he killed her.
I still, to the end, I feel like it's the only way kind of makes sense. There's too many big... I feel like there's too many big hints that don't get let down by the little ones.
See, that central mystery
He's
aside,
either got rid of her in some capacity. He's got it. She's gone away. He's either paid her and she's disappeared because she said she had no money, and he's obviously given her loads of money to get out and get away, and she's just gone. He's either sent her away or he's killed her.
The thing is, when you take that central mystery away about whether he killed her or not, it's 2.5 hours of blood.
It is a long film for what it is. I will give you that.
Film. Yeah, and it's almost like I don't know why we're watching this, and I didn't realise till afterwards. I was saying just when you stepped away, Paul, that it's like Adam was saying it's based on a William Faulkner book, but I've also read that it's based on a Haruki Murakami book, and I've read a couple of Haruki Murakami books, Japanese author, and it totally feels like one of his novels, and it makes sense to immerse yourself in a story like that when it is a novel, because you're in it, you're living in it, and it feels like a novel. If a movie could be a novel, this would probably be it. It feels like a book.
Yeah, the short story I sent you was by the Japanese author, but also in the book,
I have to read it.
they have been... So in the book, John Soo is married, and he's quite a bit older than her, and also they have been friends for a long time, like friends over years.
Okay.
Well, then
Rather
they've
than-
changed it for the film quite significantly with the
there's
intention
quite a
of
few
making
elements
it mysterious,
which,
then, isn't it?
If you go to the book, well, I think the short story definitely implies more that Ben's character killed her off.
Right.
And interestingly, I've just obviously realised that Ben is the only one with a Western name.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's all like these, like you said, it's the kind of American, Korean kind of guys. He's also got a different accent as well. He's different. He's more like if like an audience in America and England watching it, he's got more of an American accent to him, hasn't he? Because he's obviously been in America acting as well.
I think it's definitely intentional that he was cast.
Yeah,
Anyway.
of course it is.
Can I ask your boys' opinion on that, Paul, you mentioned it at the beginning before we start recording, the tangerine scene. Like, scenes like that in movies don't exist unless they mean something. And she says, the trick is not to imagine it's there, but to forget that it's not there.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, that's going to pay off at some point, and it never did. So how can we make that work with what happens in this film?
I could say the only thing is it's her performing, her using her creative skills to maybe try and get out of the position she's in, but she can never get away from the position she's in because she never has enough money to pursue her career of being an actress.
But what's her creative skills getting? How's her creative?
She said she went to
skills?
pantomime school, didn't she?
Yeah, but I
She wants
think
to be an actress in
But when
some
she's
ways.
saying that stuff, when she's saying, she very explicitly says the trick is not to imagine it's there; it's to forget that it's not there. So that's got to have some bearing on what fucking happens later. Like the cat, maybe the trick is not to imagine it's there, but forget that it's not there. That technically you forget that the cat is not there. There is no cat. So when you see the cat at the end, that's a red herring. That doesn't mean that he killed her. because
Maybe it's
there
like
is no
Schrodinger's cat. Like literally like a Schrodinger's cat kind of situation.
Well, that's true. And he determines as soon as he sees a cat that must be the cat. But also, it could reflect her. It could be
literally
Heine
let the cat out of the bag.
herself.
He let the cat out of the apartment.
Well, that's a crap joke.
The tagline of this film also says, "Now tell the truth." That is the tagline.
That's bizarre. Well, now tell the truth. Yeah, so like maybe that's his story. Maybe that's all his story, and he actually killed this guy because he hated this rich Korean, and he felt put upon, and like that's the police saying to him afterwards, "Now tell the truth. What really fucking
But
happened?"
he never liked Great Gatsby as a film.
But I think it could also relate to her as well, telling the well story, and it's like no one seems to know there's a well. He can't remember seeing her push down a well. not pushed down a well, falling down a well.
She was definitely a liar about some stuff, man. Like when she said, I've had work done, I was thinking, you're like 18, 19.
Yeah.
You can't have changed that much.
Another thing also that happens we never find out anything about is his phone keeps ringing and someone keeps putting the phone down.
Yeah, that happens several times. The last time it happens, I think you're meant to think that's why he thinks Jaime's been killed, because he thinks it's her that rings.
I think you hear something on the last call, but I can't remember what it was.
I think it was her, like, sort of like, just some disgruntled noises on her side. But then, yeah, that's true. Why would she call him? Maybe she was going to call him and say, look, I'm going away. But she couldn't bring herself to say the words and hung up. There is mystery to the film. I like it. I like that there is a bit of stuff to discuss on this stuff. That's what it is, quite interesting.
That's why I
not
picked
being
it.
enjoyable.
I did have another film lined up, and I thought, no, what? But I'm going to pick this one.
What was your other film going to be, or are you going to hold that back for another?
I might hold it for later on. So
yeah,
I'll
hold it
for
back.
now.
Don't say.
It's a completely different film to this.
I appreciated it. I feel bad in a way after this discussion. I feel bad about giving it a 6, but I have to be honest. It wasn't an enjoyable watch. Like the only thing that kept me going was wanting to know whether or not he was going to kill her or not.
I think the conversation surrounding this film is better than the actual film.
Yeah. But that's why I think it would work very well as a book, because in a book you get to explore. Maybe I'll read that short story.
It's only 13 pages. It took me 15 minutes or so to read it. So
Very good.
I very much appreciated your in-depth discussion, Adam. You did do your research.
Adam done his research
You
big time.
actually did do your research big time.
I actually had notes this time.
Did you?
We put the pressure on him by saying we weren't going to do any research. Well
Look
done.
at that.
It was
well
good.
done, Adam.
Because
Maybe
look,
do some research of your own and see if you could find any different meanings.
You skewed the way of the conversation, because had you not said that stuff about the rich and the poor, we would have been having other conversations just about did he kill her or not, rather than what it might otherwise mean.
That brought a very good element.
That's good. Well done, Adam.
So it seems we've come to a natural end to our conversation, and I think it is time to get some lovely little reviews from some of our listeners on Twitter. This is from For Your Reconsideration podcast. They're a great little podcast, you check them out. But they said, there's this ethereal, almost hypnotic quality to the storytelling, while at the same time examining very real themes of class, jealousy, and obsession. It's totally enthralling and fascinating from start to finish. Look at that. Class, Adam.
Yeah, they mentioned
themes
it.
of class.
They saw it. They saw through without being told. Yeah. The second one here is from Remote Takes. They haven't actually seen the film, but they still left a review, which is very nice of them. It says, I haven't seen it, but I do like Steven Yeun. The trailers make it look very mysterious. What is this mysterious man's new hobby? I have to know. Well, get along and watch it. Don't listen to the podcast first, though, because that might ruin it, though.
Yes, this is a bit.
Yeah, it's
you're
a bit late
far.
now.
You're a bit far into the podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe when you tag
Or
me
maybe
in it,
not. Watch it and make your own mind up, because we don't know for sure yet whether his hobby was killing people or burning greenhouses.
What do you think of Steven Yeun after this film?
I got more time for him now.
Yeah, I thought it was all right.
The Walking Dead is not the best. Glenn is no good. I don't care to see any more Glenn. He was not a good character.
I
Very
do
dull.
enjoy Glenn in The Walking Dead, so I'll have to give him that.
He was pathetic.
I reckon you're definitely Ben in this film, though, Ben, because your name's Ben.
Oh
have
yes,
to
let's
be.
move on to that. Ben
To be
is
fair,
Ben.
you don't really want to be any of the characters, do you?
No, but if I've got to be one, I'll be him.
It's really not. Adam is actually Ben. Come on now.
Adam doesn't have the wit or the charm.
Oh
of
shit!
Ben.
What are you trying to say, bitch?
Okay, yeah, Adam could be what's his name? Jong
Adam's
Soo.
the dad who's going to court for a year, going to jail for a year and a half.
For beating up a government official.
I'll be the judge. I'll send him to jail.
That'll do nicely. None of us want to be Jong-soo.
No, none of us Jong Soo. Right, so that moves us on beautifully to placing this film. Where's it going to place? Let's have a little look.
All right, everyone, we took a little break out and we gave this film 6.7 as our average score. We've only given one other film a 6.7, and that was Martyrs, which we covered a couple of weeks ago. So we decided, Adam and I, in fact, we didn't even consult with Adam, but I'm assuming Adam places it above Martyrs.
Yeah, of
considering he
course.
gives it an 8. So that means that in our rankings, the film that's above it on a 7 is Green Book.
Ugh.
Oh, shit.
But I don't know, mate. Yes, I know. Ugh, murky that is. Green Book's above it. And then we got Burning, and then we have Martyrs, and then The Gentleman. But we're still waiting for Adam to watch The Gentleman, which
It comes onto Amazon
right
Prime
for sure.
tomorrow, or maybe last Friday, whenever this.
Well, it's going to change everything.
So we'll watch in due time.
And a reminder to everyone out there of our top 10 in order from 10 to 1. In 10th place, Infinity War. 9th place, Us. 8th place, John Wick Chapter 3. 7th place, Nocturnal Animals. 6th place, 3 Billboards. 5th place, Mulholland Drive. 4th place, Casino. 3rd place, Joker. 2nd place, The Irishman. And 1st place, with a whopping 9.7, is Whiplash.
Whiplash.
Is anything going to break into that top 10 in the remainder of this year? Who knows? Maybe it will next week once you boys get
What are you picking, Ben?
watch my recommendation.
Ooh.
What are you picking?
So
Go
I
on.
decided that since I kind of have a reputation for being a bit stuffy, that I'm going to go completely against the grain.
I'm very stuffy today.
And you are very stuffy. You've got the stuffy reputation now. And we've watched a couple of quite highbrow films for the last few episodes, so I'm going to bring the tone right down, and we're going to watch a film which I first watched with my brother in the cinema, I feel like 20 years ago.
Ooh.
It's another delve into the horror genre, but I think it's one that, Adam, you might actually enjoy this time as opposed to Exorcist 3. It's a slasher film entry.
Ooh.
A very late entry in the franchise, and the film is called Jason X.
Oh, okay.
Adam, for your reference, that is the 10th Friday the 13th film.
Do I need to watch the previous?
No, you
9?
really don't.
You don't,
really don't.
no.
But they send Jason into space. And that's all I'll say. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that episode, I feel. It's been so long since I watched it. I've been doing a bit of a slasher film rewatch recently, and I thought, you know what? I feel like revisiting that one is probably
Yes.
worth a little bit of fucking around and conversation with you.
Let's
lot.
have some fun.
And that's what we'll do. But
That is
also,
beautiful.
we can be found elsewhere very soon, right?
Yes, we will be. Very shortly. Most likely within the next week. I don't want to pressure for your reference to push this episode out as quick as they can, but round about in a week's time or so, we will be on a For Your Reference episode of, are we allowed to say what film it is?
Well, you have to keep your ears posted.
Yes.
I don't think we
keep
can
your
say.
ears close to the ground, because we will be appearing on an episode of For Your Reference, our beautiful friends Katie and Oti, who appeared in our podcast quite a few episodes ago, doing The Jesus Rolls, which was a terrible film, which Ben loved completely.
I'm very excited to return, and hopefully we will have a film that Katie and Oti actually enjoy talking about.
Oh, yes.
When we did Jesus Rolls, neither of them liked it.
Jesus Rolls.
And when we did Big Lebowski, Oti didn't like it. So maybe this time they'll like it and we'll hate it.
With me.
So, yes, before we appear on that episode, I guess we better wrap this episode up.
Yes, indeed.
So here we go. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us at FilmbustersPod on Instagram and Twitter. You can go to our website, www.filmbusterspod.co.uk. We have all our podcast episodes on there and some beautiful reviews from us and our in-house critics. You can get our personal accounts as well. I am at Filmbusters Ben.
Whoa! Oh my god.
Ooh, I'm at Filmbusters Ben.
And I'm at Filmbusters Ben.
Oh shit! How do
Who's
we
the
all
real
get the
one?
same? How do we all get the same?
Who knows?
All the same username. That's crazy.
Who knows? You boys, guess what? I lost a point because you didn't say the magic words.
Yes!
Oh shit! What was it?
So, the magic words, you kept saying watch. I wanted you to say pink. I wanted you to say pink watch.
Oh.
And you
Well,
kept
we
saying
called-
watch, and you kept referring to watch, and you didn't say pink. So,
Look at that.
as a little update for the very end of the podcast, that means Paul takes the lead by holding on to the 19 points. I go down
Yeah.
to 18, and Adam's on 16. So if Adam has another week like he did this week, he comes up to my fucking level.
Look at
I'm
that.
going to do a lot of research on the Jason franchise and Friday the 13th.
Yeah, man.
Tales Busters.